like you say, everyone's got a story. I mean, you can run into a random person and sit them down and you'll be shocked that everyone has a story. I do remember one thing that did stick with me forever. When my mom had passed away and I was 15, I was shopping for her funeral outfit for me to wear something to her funeral. And I remember the lady at the counter just asking me, how are you? You know, whatever, we're Southern here. So it's like, no, you doing okay? And the answer is, yeah, I'm fine. And that's what I said. And I walked out thinking, never will she know that my mom literally just died the other day. And that stuck with me to the point where you really don't know what someone else is going through. And so you really just have to remember that everybody has a story.
Welcome to the Bountiful podcast, where we explore what it means to live a bountiful life. Today's episode takes a heartfelt turn as we welcome Jessica Mogford to the show. She's a resilient mother of four, advocate for young mothers, and a testament to the power of perseverance. Jessica's journey from teen motherhood to founding a maternity house for young mothers is a powerful story of overcoming adversity and choosing hope despite life's challenges. In our conversation, we'll dive into Jessica's experience growing up in a turbulent environment, the strength she found through her own struggles, and the importance of building a family rooted in love and transparency. We'll also explore her journey through sobriety, the lessons she's learned about forgiveness and self-worth, and her reflections on finding peace and purpose amid life's trials. In a world where connection often feels hard to reach, Jessica's story reminds us that the journey towards a bountiful life begins with nurturing our own hearts and extending kindness to others. This episode offers a poignant reminder that no matter where we start, we all have the power to create a life filled with love, resilience, and meaning. Jessica, welcome to the Bountiful podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Sure. You said my name is Jessica. I definitely have an interesting walk of life, but I definitely feel like it's turned out bountiful. So it makes sense. I have 4 great kids, 13, 17, 24, 25. So one was graduating high school and the other one was starting kindergarten. So I've been doing this for a while. Obviously started very young, but struggled a bit, came from like a very broken family and ended up with a very non-broken family, in my opinion. I've got 4 wonderful, happy kids, 2 that have turned out to be great adults. So nothing makes you feel like more settled than having kids that you are happy, you know? And I'm happy after many years of struggling to stay that way by circumstances that weren't necessarily always my own. So found a place now in life where I can be happy, I can have kids that are happy, and I don't have to be in a situation where the outside environment is so detrimental to our happiness. So,
and we'll get into a little bit of that. But first, can you share with me what it means to you to live a bountiful life?
To live a bountiful life to me means to be content and happy in whatever situation you're in. I don't think bountiful always has to mean money, doesn't always have to mean success in the world's eyes. Bountiful to me every morning is that my kids want to talk to me every day, you know, that I have a relationship with 4 kids that are in my life constantly, that love being in my life, that I love being in theirs, that I'm in a position where I can provide for them and not worry anymore, which hasn't always been the case, and I can provide the things that they need to be happy.
Do you have a worldview, or like how do you see the world?
I love to explore other places with other cultures and other communities and learn the understanding of how similar we all are and how different we all are and how lucky we are. I think the more you can see the world, the better a worldview you can have. It's very hard to hear some people's worldviews that haven't left their own community, which I was in for a while, a bunch of people that had a bunch of opinions that had, not explored much. So I think my worldview is that we're all so very similar, and we're all told that we're very different, and we're not. We all love each other. We all want to be loved. We all love our families. We all want to care for people. I think it's pretty global. And I think that sometimes there can be a lot of walls.
Yeah, I share that view through various circumstances, but I always had the view that in order to understand the world, you have to see the world.
Right.
Whether that is actually physically going and standing on like Machu Picchu or
Right.
in a slum in India or
watching a documentary from your own living room
exactly.
sometimes, it definitely makes a difference. My kids laugh at me. I'm constantly, you've got to watch this documentary. You've got to watch this documentary. They're like, you and your documentaries, but you can learn so much. You can learn so much.
And talking to people, right?
Yeah.
How do you see yourself?
I see myself as someone who has been able to overcome. And I don't think that has been something that wasn't always in me. I think that just a mindset of days are numbered. We've got so many days on this earth to live. I don't want to waste one being sad. I don't want to waste one being mad. I just want to, the numbers are, that end date is there and I don't know when it is. So I want to make sure that I can see beauty and happiness.
My husband sent me a text the other day and he's like, did you know you have 2,100 weeks left to live if you live kind of to the normal age expectancy for a woman in New Zealand or something. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
And then it's like, take out the work, take out the, it's really not that many weekends that you have to fill or weeks that you have to fill. It kind of made me feel like a little, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, even just in Houston, you're talking about takeout drive time. That's probably a half a year if you want to take out all of these things. And I mean, I've in my head been like, I wonder how, if I added up, because I bathe every day, I don't shower. I bathe every day, every morning, and I feel like it just helps me to just sit and relax and get my day started right so I don't feel rushed. But then I was thinking, I wonder if I took all of my bath time, my whole life. Is it like a year out of my life that I've sat in that bathtub? Maybe 2 years. I don't know.
So, that sounds bountiful to me, like relaxation.
Yeah. I do enjoy that.
Given my shower pressure this morning, I think it's much more water that you would have had. What advice do you have for your 25-year-old self?
Oh, I have a lot, but I have a 25-year-old daughter, so I can and she looks just like me, so it's easy. I feel like I don't share a lot of the same views as a lot of people as far as so like my ex-husband and I, we differ very much on the kids have to go straight to a college. They have to do the things. They have to do the things that check off on paper. And I'm just not for it. I'm not. Like we said before, our days are numbered. I wouldn't me at 25 and I don't want them to spend a year going to classes on something they have no idea that that's what they want to do with their life. I want, if it makes you happier to not, then don't. If you know what you want to be and that requires a certain degree, by all means, that's exactly what I want you to do. But if you don't know what you want to be, I don't want you feeling stressed, wasting money, wasting time, feeling so much pressured. I have a 17-year-old right now. Very few people at 17 really do have it all lined out for themselves. Take your time. I did tell my oldest daughter that. She ended up, I had to very much talk her into it because her father was like, no, she needs to go straight to a university, which is, like I said, fine, if that's exactly what you want to do. But she didn't, and she did want to travel the world. So she ended up, I talked her into, and you would be surprised how hard it was to talk her into going and living in Hawaii for a year. I was like, this should not be this difficult. You're only going to be this age for one time in your life, and once you start getting married, you don't get to move around. You don't get to, once you have children, just always. It's not as easy to do. This is the time of your life where go do all the things you want to do and don't worry about what you're going to do with the rest of your life because the rest of your life is going to come and you'll figure it all out. So she went to Hawaii. She went, and then it was at a school where they send you off. You don't know where you're going to go, but you go on a mission somewhere to do some outreach. So they sent her to Nepal. And then all of the friends that she met, she ended up, they lived in Huntington Beach, California, the ones that were at school with her in Hawaii. She moved to Huntington Beach, California, and never even came home.
Yep.
So imagine if you wouldn't have went, like the whole direction of your life changed. She's in a city that she loves. She's got friends that she feels she related to more than she did here in Houston, the whole California vibe thing. She's got a fiance now. So, and they're just her whole life. I always tell her now, imagine if I wouldn't have talked you into moving to or going to Hawaii. You can go to Hawaii and live for free at a school. All you got to do is like the yard work.
Yep.
They give you food and everything. So that's what I would give I would have made my 25-year-old self go to Hawaii like I made her do.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done.
What is the lesson there? If you don't know what you want to do, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like do some wayfinding.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I hope that my younger children, my plan is to try to talk them into doing the same thing. Go see the world for a little while. You will figure it out. Go see the world, open your eyes. And I promise, as soon as you step out of your home or your comfort and you look at the world, what you want to do will start showing itself up. You know, what interests you, what you learn outside in the world that you're drawn to, it'll be a lot more clear. When you just get out of high school and you think you're supposed to have a plan, you've never even seen anything but the classroom in your house, for the most part, vacations, then it's hard to know where the world will take you if you haven't seen it.
This is throwing me back to when I was about 23. I had seen a little bit of the world, but I moved to San Francisco. I got a job on the fly as a community manager for like a co-working space, helping a bunch of New Zealand entrepreneurs expand into the US market. But I couldn't really afford to go to conferences because I worked for a nonprofit. And so, but I'd been interning for a video production company. And so I ran around making these videos for events, like event promo reels to promote the events. And then one day, one of these conferences was like, hey, our video production crew didn't show up. Can you do the whole event? And can you interview our speakers? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Same. And then so I'm kind of realizing maybe the reason why I'm comfortable interviewing a perfect stranger that I only just like literally learned your life story like 5 minutes ago is because of that moment, because I just made a decision. I'm like, what have you got to lose? And also just this, like, I've always deeply cared about human beings and understood the thread of like, they do something, they have a job, they have a life, they have a family, they have interests, they've got a worldview, and to learn and to chat.
Yeah.
And so I think this moment here was born like maybe a really long time ago, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So you're from Houston. Tell me a little bit. I mean, you mentioned broken childhood. I don't know if you want to discuss that, but maybe tell me a little bit more about your upbringing, and then we can get into, the adversity you've had to.
Certainly. So I actually, it's south of Houston. It's a little town called Pasadena, Texas. It's Gillies was there. Some people might know that's the only thing we've ever had that was like a hit, and it was a bar. So that tells you a lot.
Yep.
A lot of refineries, a lot of chemical plants. I mean, just one after the other. We do a whole story on that. So that's where most of the men made their money. So it was very, I lived with my mother and stepdad primarily growing up in Pasadena, Texas. And my stepdad they were very much drinkers. They were very much partiers. They were very much Gillies goers. So, and then my stepdad was very abusive. And they ended up separating when I was 13. And then my mom and my real dad got back together. I had one sister who was my half-sister, so we had different dads, but the same mother. My parents were together until I was about 2. I remember very little of that, but then he went to prison for some time, and then after that he moved to California. So while my dad was in prison, my mother and him separated, and she ended up marrying my stepdad. But my parents were always very much in love. So my dad never remarried. He never even really had another girlfriend, and just kind of waited around for her to get her mind right, which she did. And she finally left my stepdad after many years she went through a lot of abuse, left my stepdad and got back with my real dad when I was 13.
Yep.
Yeah. They were together for 2 years. And then one day my mom, who was 34 years old, dropped me off at a friend's house. My friend was going to take me to school from there. I was in 10th grade. And then by third period, I was called out and she had had a heart attack at 34 years old and died in our bathroom. So that obviously changed the course of a lot.
Random heart attack.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it was random, but looking back, it was 1996, so there was not a lot of 34-year-old women having heart attacks. So she was having heart pains, and she was telling her doctor that she was having heart pains, and they told her it was anxiety and gave her some Xanax. She was already an alcoholic, so that didn't go well. So she was taking a lot of Xanax. And then one time, honestly, we went to my grandparents' house in the country. She started having the heart pains. And my grandfather gave her a nitrogen. So it's a pill that you take only if you're having a heart attack to completely stop it, because they lived in the country so that the ambulance would have time to get there, because my grandfather had heart trouble too. Yeah. So he gave it to her and it went away. And then so she went back to her doctor and she was like, I really think it's my heart because I took this pill and it stopped it. And he got angry with her and said, you should have never taken that. That could have killed you. And she said, I feel like it saved my life. And he basically told her, because it's anxiety, the pill could have been a water pill. It wouldn't have mattered what pill it was. It would have had that effect. So she was like, well, then give me some water pills. Give me something that makes it stop like that. But she did end up having a heart attack in the bathroom of my house. When I was 15, my sister was 18.
Stepdad's gone.
Stepdad's
back
gone.
in the picture.
My dad is very back in the picture, but he has also not been a dad because he was, in every other weekend, take me shopping for the weekend. And he didn't really know how to handle two girls who had been with their mom their whole life that had just suddenly lost that. Yeah. He lost the love of his life that he waited many years to get back with and was only with her for 2 years, and then she died. So he struggled quite a bit and ended up leaving me and my sister there to kind of fend for herself. Not, obviously not by any choice. He didn't know how to do what he was doing. He didn't even know how to deal with losing her. So he went off and I did not see him for a few years. And my sister and I stayed in that house where my mom had died and tried our best, but we failed.
And the environment you were growing up in was not very friendly to children growing up.
Yeah, no. The neighborhood was not friendly. The circumstances that most of us were in were just not. We had no accountability. We had a house to ourselves. We had already lived a very troubled with the abuse of my stepdad and everything. It wasn't that we had a very solid base and then now we're in this position so we could probably do it. We tried. But also, silly side note, the government was now giving us money because my mom had died. So we were getting Social Security. We didn't budget before. We had not been taught any of these things, right? All of a sudden, we're supposed to be able to do them. So we did not. Turned into a neighborhood party house. Yeah. I would come home and be like, who are you? Why are you in my room? It was just, we wouldn't even be home. And we would come home and then there'd just be teenagers everywhere, So we definitely delved into a life of no accountability for teenagers, which meant drugs, drinking, everything you're not supposed to do, sex, which led me to my first child, which I got pregnant when I was 16. So it was a year after my mom passed. I ended up pregnant and had her a month after I turned 17. So, and her name is Dakota. She's the one that's out in California now. She's doing great. But that was also a struggle. There's a very good chance she wouldn't have ever been here, but we told one adult to see how they would react, and it would happen to be an adult that it was his sister, her father's sister, and she just loved her instantly. As soon as I said I was pregnant, so I was like, okay, I can do this, But I didn't have her for a long time because her father had a family, parents and sisters and everything, so he had a safe place for her. I didn't. So when we did break up, I lived with his family for a long time. We were very young. So when that didn't work out, I didn't have anywhere to go, and she was very comfortable with his family and stuff. So I really didn't have as close of a relationship with her as I would have wanted till she was about 8. Yeah.
It worked out. Can I ask you a question around forgiveness and abandonment? Because I feel like you've kind of had a massive sense of abandonment with kind of parents just in a way leaving you, walking out on you, but then also living in a household with your mum who kind of not tolerated abuse, but kind of it happened to you as well.
Right.
And so how did you forgive? Was there anything in your brain where you're like, oh, I'm mad at you, or you needed to forgive her for kind of subjecting you, or even just having you in an environment?
Certainly, kind of thing? So it has taken a while. It takes a while of, I just actually was in a talk therapy group. It's more just you tell your story and you kind of all get to be together because, it's hard to find those positions in life like this where you're forced to stop and talk about it and think about how does this affect your life and how does this affect your relationships. It definitely has affected, I was angry a long time. I knew it wasn't her fault, but I also knew it was her fault that the things that I didn't get to get answers for. So after, at this age, I could ask her, why did you let these things happen? Why couldn't you build that friendship? And you're like, why couldn't you get it together, But without any of those questions being answered, it's kind of hard to find out. She was so young. So I've forgiven her. I've made very many mistakes. I can't say I've made the mistakes that she's made, but I did make some mistakes, quite a few raising children, and it's not easy. She had us at 16 and 18. Yeah. But there were some things that I'm still maybe a little bit angry at her for.
Yeah.
Just letting, I saw many things I would never let my children see in our home, let happen in a home to where my children would have to experience that.
Yeah.
So certainly that still is something that I work through. It has made me grossly independent almost. So it's hard when you lose the most important person in your life and you find out after many, years of struggling and stuff, but you kind of tell yourself, well, I'll be okay. Like if I got through that, many relationships I've been through since, I'm like, I'd lose you. It'd be all right. It's sad, but I could move on.
Yeah.
So it's hard to not have that mentality as you're growing up. So it's kind of done weird things with my abandonment issues. My friend says I don't have the miss me gene. Like if you're in my face, I love you so much and I'll give you everything. But once you move away, I'm just like, I think I've had to in my life sometimes pretend that people have just moved away. That they're just, because people come in and out of your life that you were very close to that you just don't talk to anymore. So they kind of get put in that box, like you're out there somewhere. Yeah. I just am not able to see you right now.
It's like a self-preservation.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, I completely understand. I think, something you just said, Connor and I talked about on the podcast. We were talking about just the things that we don't ask our parents.
Right.
And so like all the things you couldn't ask your mum,
right.
all the things I didn't ask my dad. And I feel like I was kind of one of those obnoxious children that asked a lot of questions. So now I ask my mum everything. And sometimes I look at the relationships between my best friends and their families and I'm like, just ask those questions.
Yeah.
Even if like they're like, oh, but they'll react in this way. And I'm like, I don't think they will.
Right.
And for me, it comes from a place of like, when they die, you're going to wish you asked that question.
Yeah.
It took me 32 years to figure out some of the deep stuff that I think my dad was struggling with around like, parental abandonment, not having the love of his mum, and how not being loved manifests in like adult relationships, being a parent.
Right.
I'm not a parent, but I can kind of see that, and which is just so fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely the whole thing caused me to be very transparent. So, and I think that's where my kids have a lot of friends that will come over and we'll have just conversations about anything. And they don't have parents that they can talk to about certain things because they're just not. And I think that has been the best advice that I could give anybody with kids and myself. They don't care if you mess up. Yeah. My mom messed up a lot. I wouldn't have cared as a kid. I didn't care. I care now that I couldn't get answers from her. But I tell my children all the time, like, you're going to mess up. I have one that just, was very shy and everything. I'm like, no, get out there and mess up a little bit. Like she's very scared to do those things. But I love that they can always come back and talk to me about anything and that I can talk to them about anything. I think that is one thing that having people around me that have died has given me is the ability to not, I kind of have this phrase that I use. I have a few of them, but rules without relationship equal rebellion. So I tried to remind my kids, like, if I have a rule, they have to trust that it's because I love them and it's best for them, not because I just want to make rules to have them follow them, because that does often lead to children feeling rebellious, feeling like they're following rules just because somebody's giving them to them. And it always leads to a certain amount of rebellion, I think.
Yep. That reminds me of something that my mum said to me. She was pretty open. I was not... I wouldn't say I was rebellious. I would say I was curious. I wanted to understand things, and I was like a why child. Like if you just said, oh, just because, I'm like, that's not an answer.
Right.
That's just like you being a parent and not giving a proper answer, which, again, slightly obnoxious. But she, hope she doesn't mind me sharing the story. Okay, when she was younger, I think she did LSD. No, she smoked a joint once.
It can often feel the same.
So she smoked, had some weed, but it was laced with LSD. Okay. And then she ended up in hospital.
Oh, no.
And then she was like, look, I get it. I know that you want to experiment. I know that you want to be curious, but I have two pieces of advice for you. One, never do acid. Two, if you're going to do drugs, know where you're getting them from. Three, please do them at home. So if something goes wrong, I can
protect you,
take care of you or do something. And I was like, okay. This one time I came home and I was like, hey, Mum, I want to smoke a cigarette. And she was like, okay. I was like, okay, bye. She was like, interesting. She's like, I'm going out.
Yeah.
So I was like, safe space.
Yeah.
You told me,
Right.
you know, this is, so I feel like mum and dad also had this thing around like, if you want, we'd love for you to be, this to be the house where you can have friends over and, you know, we're happy to have all your people over. Not that I had that many people so that you're here. We'd rather see you here with your people rather than you being God knows what.
Yeah.
Doing God knows, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Sadly, in the neighborhood that I lived in, things that were going on in the houses were no one wanted.
So I'm going to swap gears a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit? So you have 4 children now, but you had 2 when you were under 20.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about being a teen mum and what that was like for you and, how you navigated it?
It's very difficult. It definitely is. I think there is obviously starts with stigma. You know what I mean? It's hard to go in for a job. People find out you have 2 kids and you're 20. It already just doesn't look great. But then there's this cycle of, I can't get a job because I don't have a car. Can't get a car because I don't have a job. When I didn't have family, a lot of family help. So it's just a circle that takes 8 years, which is why Dakota, and I didn't get her back until in my life full time until she was 8 years old. That could have taken 2 years. It should have taken 1 year had I had some help, had I had a family. So being a teen parent is definitely difficult and is definitely something I've had a heart towards since then. I had my second child at 19. His father was not in a position, so my poor son was stuck with me. So I drug him through quite a bit more. Thankfully, Dakota was protected. Dakota had a family. But it was him and having to drag him around that really, I was not going to lose 2 kids. I would work hard to get the other back, but I wasn't willing to lose 2. And I knew if I had stayed on the path that I would lose both of them. So it was a struggle, but I got it together and worked it out. It was a couple years of dragging him around, but then because I always did have a heart for teen moms, that's what led to me having the dream to open a maternity house later for other teen moms, to give them a place where you don't have to worry about every aspect. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get a car, how you're going to get a job. If there's any place that will just take care of those basic needs that most people have, so that these women are the mothers they want to be by the time their kid is 1, not 8. And then that child is saved from so much childhood trauma just from those 8 years, that then they have a better chance that they don't have kids that have to deal with that kind of trauma and stuff. So.
And this is Hope House?
This is Hope House, yeah.
Based here in Houston?
It is, in League City, Texas. I'm not a part of it anymore, but we founded it and got it off the ground and got it running. And I had the first group of girls in there. So one of them came to live with me afterwards, after she was done with that place, and we're still very close. But most of those girls were girls that aged out of foster care. So the first round of girls, especially the girls that I lived there with when we were opening it, they were all girls that have aged out of foster care, gotten pregnant, wanted to choose to try to be a mother. They felt like they could, and they felt like they wanted to do that. So we just gave them parenting classes, the rides to doctor's appointments, the rides to school, and did all of that so that they could be the moms they wanted to be. It could be very depressing when you want to raise your child and you didn't have a mother and you think you would be a good mother, and
the system sort of works against you.
And the system definitely works against you in that regard sometimes. So,
and the conditions for being there, they had to go to school or they had to have a job. They got to live there for free.
They got to live there for free. They had to do things like, we would go apply for their Texas SNAP benefits, their food benefits. And stuff. So they all had their own refrigerator. They all had to kind of shop on their own with their benefits and things like that. Then everything else is donations. We had tutors that would come in depending on what they wanted to do. But yeah, they had to be enrolled in a school or at least a GED program if they hadn't graduated. And they had to work for a little while at least. Some of them would come in quite large and weren't able to do those things, but they have to take care of the house. They have chores and everything else. So it's just a place that I wish I had had.
So really you're just kind of like-minded individuals, safe space.
Right.
And also like kind of giving them the foundations to potentially thrive as a mother in society that, society is really nice to us sometimes.
Right. No, and it's just hard to be on your own. And especially when it's taking longer because you have more hurdles than people realize,
So you ended up married, going to church.
I did.
Divorced, married again, a few more kids. Tell me a little bit about that
Right.
phase of your life and maybe some of the lessons you learned.
Yeah, so I ended up having to move away. So to make sure that I had the best life I could for the two children that were the youngest, I had to get away from the neighborhood, the friends that I had, the things that I was doing. It's hard to say no to things when people are knocking on your door with those things, you know? So I walked out on an apartment, left all my furniture, took my son, and moved to San Antonio with a relative who I knew would tell me, you're not leaving here until
Sort your stuff out.
Right. Yeah. Sort your stuff out. So I ended up in San Antonio working for a while. I had my son there. Dakota was here. And then when I had been sober and was healthy and knew that I could, I moved back and met my first husband. I had two children, Mercy and Brooklyn. And yeah, it ended up turning into religious. I feel like I'm still very spiritual. I feel like I still have beliefs that I believe in. I feel like sometimes the American church is a little different than what I believe. And that was very much a church that was. And my ex-husband got very involved in that to the point where if I was caught listening to secular music, all the dials on my radio would be set to one station only. If there was a problem in our finances, even though I was a stay-at-home mom, it was because I did something wrong. I was listening to secular music. I didn't tithe on my non-income. I don't know how I would have done those things, but that I was always doing something wrong to make our household not as good. And then, you compare yourself with a lot of church moms. And when you're in the church halls, they're all perfect. Their kids are all perfect and so well behaved. And I was always compared to the perfect women of the children, and it just became too much. I knew that I was a good person. I knew who I was, so it was hard for me to be told that I wasn't good enough because I wasn't meeting these standards.
And all of those standards behind closed doors.
Yeah, oh yeah, and they were so bad because, of course, in the church halls, he was the best husband, but I mean, even now, my girls, have problems with him that I used to have, and they have a lot of religious trauma. Like, if you're the representation of this Christ that's supposed to be so good, then why are you behind closed doors and not? So it definitely does. It's hard to navigate, like, this is what you're saying is good, but you're not very good, like, because reputation's important when you're a religious folk,
I wouldn't know, but I'll take your word for it. And I think we've seen enough that is, I did watch a YouTube video the other day that I won't go into, but I think I sort of understand.
Yeah.
So then tell me a little bit about, where you're at now and reconnecting with your high school sweetheart and sort of coming full circle a bit.
Yeah, I do feel like I have. So I gained quite a bit of independence from going from a stay-at-home mom in a very religious community. Everything was in the church. Our friends so I had to walk away from a lot of friends. I had to walk away from a lot of people. So I ended up by myself in my own apartment with my children, who he did try to take from me. And I was like, no, I've literally. And then I reconnected. My dad did come back into my life. We became very close. And then while I was married, my dad and I became very close, and he helped me with my two younger children quite a bit. So then he passed away. My husband at the time did not treat me very well when my dad passed away. So that was enough for me to be like, if you can't even be nice now, during this time, then you're never going to be. So I left and I reconnected with my high school sweetheart. So he was actually the one that was with me. We were dating when my mom died suddenly. So it was a very traumatic experience for him too. We were just kids, and to try to have a girlfriend whose mom just suddenly died was very difficult for him. He was too kind for me to let stick around he was like, I'm not gonna let you do this to yourself. And I was like, well, then you should go, because it's about to get ugly, I could tell. So we didn't talk for 20 years. And then we found out we actually had children in the same class.
Yep.
So we kind of just started talking. And
it's like universe vibes.
It was, it definitely was. And it was exactly what I needed. So I needed someone with the life that I had. I had to make sure. It's hard to trust people. Obviously, I have those issues. Trust people are going to stay. Trust people are going to understand the things that make me me. So it was great.
And trust people to be kind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was important, when you're a child, you're your most innocent self. A lot of things I think in this world change us and we become very different people, but the core of us is still the me I was before my mom died.
Yeah.
To find somebody that knew that person and could understand like how things had changed me, but how I was also still the same without me having to explain those things, and who had shown me such pure love even at 15. It was a beautiful thing for me to find because I needed it in my life. And I was so thankful that I had someone that I could find that I remembered those things.
And blended family.
He's got children. He's got 2.
Yep.
And I've got the 2 at home.
Yep.
But then the 2 out of the home. So it's just it depends on what weekend you're there. There could be a ton of people, or it could just be him and I.
Yep.
It's fun.
So tell me a little bit about, I don't know, you've overcome a lot.
Yeah.
What's some of your key lessons on that?
Just, again, remembering. It's hard for me because my mom died at 34. I'm 43. Yep. I'm older so much more life that she was ever even allowed to get, So I think you have to overcome. As long as we're still breathing, there's still a chance to do something that we've never done before, something we've always wanted to do, something that would make other people's lives better because we're here.
What have you understood about people?
Like you say, everyone's got a story. I mean, you can run into a random person and sit them down and you would be shocked that everyone has a story. I do remember one thing that did stick with me forever. When my mom had passed away and I was 15, I was shopping for her funeral outfit for me to wear something to her funeral. And I remember the lady at the counter just asking me, "How are you?" Whatever, we're Southern here. So it's like, "No, you doing okay?" And the answer is, "Yeah, I'm fine." And that's what I said. And I walked out thinking, never will she know that my mom literally just died the other day. And suddenly, I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. And that stuck with me to the point where you really, it's cliche now because it's kind of everywhere. You really don't know what someone else is going through. You have no idea when you're talking to people what's really going on in their life. My mom being abused and going to work every day right here downtown Houston, and no one knew what she was coming home to, and so you really just have to remember that everybody has a story.
It kind of goes back to kindness is so powerful.
It's so powerful.
It really is.
It really is. And it's not always easy. We all have our days and stuff, but there's no reason to make it worse for someone else, but there's also no reason to not be transparent, to let people know what you're going through. I think that's what I've tried to instill in myself and my kids. No, I can't expect people to always be kind because I am going through stuff. If you don't ask for help, don't get angry that no one's helping. No one knows that you need it. Just be willing to ask for help if you need it. Be willing to say thank you when you appreciate someone's help. Those types of things. I've also told my kids, and it's hilarious now because we'll be anywhere and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you've got such beautiful hair," to a random stranger. If you see a compliment, if you have something nice to say it. Yeah. None of us get complimented enough in this world. And especially men, you'd be surprised because men get so uncomfortable with compliments, but they really need them. I mean, they love to hear, "That's a nice outfit today." Just if you think something kind, just say something kind. It could change somebody's whole day.
I think I went on a mission the other day to be like, I need to find all the compliments I can give my husband to make him feel special.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do. It's almost like a gratitude journal, but for somebody, to talk to somebody about.
I feel like giving males compliments is kind of hard.
It is kind of hard.
Because they
can sometimes immediately think it means something that it doesn't.
Yeah, also we just we all do different things. It's not like I don't know.
I had a friend once at work, a beautiful man came, and he came to the counter and she just looked at him and she said, "You are a really beautiful man." I was like, "I don't think you're supposed to say that." She's like, "Well, he's a beautiful man," but he did take it well and said thank you. It made him feel better and he walked away from the stage. But it is nice to give compliments.
It is.
Yeah.
Give compliments.
Yeah.
We're going to do quick fire.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to do a quick fire round now. And I do this with all of my guests, and it's fun. So, what in your opinion, they're very random, what in your opinion is the most underrated fruit or vegetable?
Oh my gosh. These are random. The most underrated fruit or vegetable, cabbage. You can do so much with cabbage. I love kimchi, and it's very healthy for you. You can Yeah, cabbage. Is cabbage even a fruit or vegetable? It is a vegetable.
Yeah, it's a vegetable.
I was like, imagine it's not.
Worst meal that your parents made you eat?
Cereal for dinner. We had cereal for dinner a lot.
That kind of makes sense. What word describes your life?
Happy.
Do you have any tenets that you live by?
Like my saying.
Yeah.
I have a few. The rules without relationship equal rebellion.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission because sometimes you just have to do things. Things like that.
What are you most proud of?
My children.
What brings you joy?
Also my children. I'm sorry, I know there should be more. Everything. A lot of things bring me joy. But like I said, I've been a parent since I was 17. So it's taken up a lot of my life, but it brings me joy.
What's one thing that you've learned about relationships that you want people to know?
Be you. And let somebody love that because it's the only thing that's safe. I think that anytime you're trying to be something for somebody or trying to get something that you didn't get before or anything, it's not a safe space. So if you're transparent and you can be all of you, good, bad, and ugly, and you should expect someone to love that because it's worth loving. And that's where you find a safe space.
Beautiful. One parenting tip that you have?
One parenting tip. It would really just be transparent. I apologize to my children a lot, but in return, they apologize as well. And so we have that, what I was just saying, a transparent place to be ourselves and be loved unconditionally. I dealt with a lot of conditional love. So that's what I don't want my kids to feel.
What did you learn about sobriety?
I definitely did learn from sobriety that it's definitely more than willpower. There's a lot that goes into sobriety. Making sure that there's people to be accountable to, making sure that they say idle time is the devil's playground. It's kind of making sure that you've got people in your life and that you're staying active. Boredom can definitely be a trigger. Isolation can definitely be a trigger. So it's more just about having people in your life that do love you unconditionally and you love unconditionally, and you can say, I'm struggling. Because the minute you make it a secret, the minute it's yours, it's easy to fall back into a trap of isolation and not being sober.
Love that. What was one thing that has really mattered that maybe you didn't know mattered at the time?
What matters is not feeling the need to defend myself. So I feel like I've definitely grown into, and it's something that started when I was young, but I can see how it's grown. Definitely when I walked away from the church and a lot of my friends, I was being the good Christian I was supposed to be, so no one knew the bad things that were happening because I wasn't allowed to talk bad about my husband. So I had to walk away without them knowing and without having to tell them why, and just assume if people love you and if people trust you, they will trust your decisions. You don't have to tell everybody every story when you surround yourself with people that know you and the people that want to ask a bunch of questions and talk about you behind your back and make sure that what you're telling them is true, or not people that you need. You don't have to defend yourself.
And then what's something that you thought mattered but realized didn't?
Oh, so much. Reputation.
It's a common one.
Yeah.
Maybe we should conclude on your walk of life. What's your walks of life reflections or?
I feel like it's exactly kind of what I wanted, and I want to show my kids, is that they've seen me not know what I was going to do. They've seen me not know what I wanted to be when I grow up, even though I'm the mother. But they've also seen that I just keep putting one step forward and finding the places in life that brings peace. I always tell them, follow peace, because it won't always be the easiest thing, but you'll always have peace when it's what you're supposed to do or what you're going to want to do later. So I'm just going to keep following peace and assume that it's going to take me to the right place. And so far, it's done great. I went from, a lot of people didn't have many expectations of where I would be in life, and I've surpassed quite a few. So I'm just going to keep trying to do that.
I mean, you have a great family. You've got all of your kids. All of your kids are in your life. They all talk to you.
Right.
Great relationship. You're in love. You've got a great job.
Yeah.
And you're a kind, lovely, beautiful human being.
Thank you.
I've only spent an hour in your company. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story on the Bountiful podcast. I know deep in my heart that I think a lot of people will get benefit from hearing your story.
That's so wonderful. I'm glad.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please tune into the rest of our season. We've got a lot of extraordinary guests with diverse backgrounds, all contributing to our exploration of what it means to live a bountiful life. So thank you. And thank you, Jessica.
Of course.